Hey guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Japanese line. We're going to look at the Tier 7 medium tank, the Chi-Ri. You might have noticed that the armor inspector looked a bit different than it normally does, and that's because there's a really cool 2.0 update coming out really soon. And I've been lucky enough to test it out prior to release. So check it out and check out the functionality. You can see up here, you pick the tank that you're going to be shooting with, and for today's review I'm going to be using the Tier 5 Soviet tank T-34, and of course we're going to be shooting at the Tier 7 Chi-Ri. So this is basically what it looks like from the perspective of a T-34 at 100 meters. And you can see the white areas is where you can penetrate the armor, so this tank is not going to bounce anything. That's why we're not going to use a lot of time looking at the stats or looking at the armor, because it doesn't really have any. So this is the frontal view. The only part you're going to bounce anything from here is the gun mantlet, which has between 170, 100 and 250 millimeters of armor directly on the gun, and you can see that's the only spot you're going to reliably bounce anything. But in all fairness, who shoots directly at a gun? So from the side, you are not going to be able to bounce anything either. From the rear, you are not going to be able to bounce anything either. But high explosive shells are going to be able to penetrate this bottom part, even if they have a very low penetration, as the armor is only 20 millimeters thick. And from the other side, you're not going to bounce anything either. So without any further ado, let's check out what this tank is really good at, and that is dishing out the damage. So I've made this little spreadsheet, as you can see. We have the Tier 7 medium tanks sorted by DPM. You can see on the top is the British Tier 7, the Comet, which has, with a rammer, it has 2,640 DPM, which is absolutely amazing. That's probably why it's one of my absolute favorite tanks in the game. And I've set this the Comet as the guideline, so it's at 100%, and the minus in column D out here just indicates how much lower the DPM of the other tanks is. So you can see a T-43 gets 2,400, and that is the same as the Chi-Ri. But the very significant difference is that the Chi-Ri has an auto-loading cannon. That means that you can dish out the 2,400 DPM in 450 average damage bursts against your enemies, and that gives you a significant advantage when you're one-on-one against pretty much every tank in the game, because you can dish out the damage so damn quick. So let's jump into the garage and see what this tank looks like. So here we go, we're in the garage, and this is pretty much what the Chi-Ri looks like. It's a pretty ugly tank, and one thing that you'll notice is how tall it is for a medium tank. So comparing it to the Comet, it's much bigger, a much easier target to hit, and that's also gonna show in the gameplay I have coming up in a few seconds, because you really are not allowed to be spotted as the first tank on your team, it just means that everything is going to penetrate you, so don't get spotted as the first one, because the first one spotted is typically the first target for all of the enemies. So back to the Chi-Ri, you can see I equip it with a multi-restoration pack, the Onigiri, and the basic repair pack. Normally I would put the Adrenaline, but Adrenaline doesn't work on auto-loading cannons, so that's why I don't have it equipped. Ammunition-wise, you're going to need quite a lot of premium AP, and I carry 34 because the penetration on this tank is very mediocre. For equipment, I'm testing a bit around. I'm using the gun rammer, and I'm also using the improved ventilation and the binocular telescope. The binocular telescope, I've been switching a bit around between that and the coated optics, so I'm not quite sure which one I feel is the best yet, but at the moment I'm using the binocular telescope. So without any further delay, let's get stuck into some gameplay. So here we are on Oasis Palms. This map is pretty much a great map for this tank, because the tank, apart from having a terrible armor and a pretty good gun, it has amazing gun depression, something that all the Japanese tanks have. And it gets 10 degrees, which is only 2 degrees less than the Comet, which has an amazing 12 degrees of gun depression. So you'll see here the mobility of the tank. It's really, really sluggish. It's not quick, even though it's a medium tank. Some heavy tanks can outrun it. A KV-1S can outrun this tank without any problem whatsoever. So I take a bit of an aggressive position here, making the first spots, something that I normally never recommend, but since this is a tier 7 game, I can allow myself to be a bit more aggressive. And I'm using the great gun depression here to use the hills as some kind of cover, but I see the Comet is coming up on my right side, and the enemy has pushed pretty aggressively to the left. So I decided to go up here, and you can see I'm taking shots now, and I'm not really giving any in return. And you can see the accuracy is not great. I hit the 43 2 times, but he had no problem hitting me. And because of the accuracy, I have a hard time making all the shots count. So you can see so far no shots have bounced my tank, and that is very much going to be the case when you drive this tank. You don't want the enemy shooting at you. You want the enemy shooting at your teammates, even though that's not something that is very nice to do. But in order to have success in this tank, it's something you're going to have to learn if you don't already do it. So you can see, even though I'm steep up on a hill here, I can still get shots into this 43. And that just, the gun depression is simply amazing. I mean, it's best in the class almost. And we have a fail platoon here, a Hetzer, but he gets taken out with a single clip, and you can really see the clip potential. I'm having no problems beating up these enemies. And you can see here, again, bang. Quick firing auto-loading cannon is simply amazing fun. So they do have a T-34-85 left. He's going to come around. I'm not going to have any shots. Unfortunately, I chose to reload, but I assumed that my team's going to finish him off when I turn around. So I can see that the Comet, I know that the Comet was coming up behind us, but it seems that my team, they're not really coming to help me. So I decide to push back towards the Comet, and the Comet's going to crest the ridge in a second, and he has great gun depression. He should have stayed hull down instead of pushing aggressively towards me. Then he would have had a chance, because with my terrible penetration, even on the premium rounds, I would have had a very hard time getting through his gun mantlet. So, but he didn't do that, so I can simply just go up here and put a finishing shot into him. So this was a pretty decent game, showing the great gun depression, showing the very, very bad mobility of the tank, at least for a medium tank, and nevertheless, I did manage to pick up 2,700 damage. So let's get into some more gameplay. So here we go, we're on the reworked Lost Temple map. I have to give kudos to Wargaming, because this map simply looks amazing after the rework. The textures have become much more detailed. The water is really, really good looking. Look at the small splashes when I drive through it. And also the color scheme is much more bright and luscious to look at. So kudos Wargaming, great effort on reworking this map. It had become kind of one-sided with everyone going to the plateau, but I think that's changed quite a lot. I'm having like 50-50 games out in the open and 50-50 games inside the temple. So awesome. Anyway, I try to push in here just to get some initial spots, try not to get too far ahead of my team, because the T-95 is a very, very slow tank, and I know I'm going to need him to have a good game in this round. The 103, he's taken the plateau. I spotted him initially. I want to try to respot him, but as you'll see in a second, I have no chance to bounce him, and I have no chance to penetrate him either. He can go through easily anywhere where I try, and even with the premium ammunition that I'm loading now, his turret is completely red for me. So I think, why should I be fighting a tier 9 heavy tank from the front who is pretty much hull down, when I could go back and get the easy shots on the side of a T-44? Especially since the T-44, he's made it around our T-95 and is trying to give him some grief. So the T-44 is going to regret having done so, because he's going to be dead in a few minutes, or in a few seconds. The Indian Panzer gets a nice shot into him. The Indian Panzer had actually moved around the flank, and I had decided not to support him, because the enemy, I felt they had too many quick tanks, and if they went, if one of the M103 or the IS-3 had gone with the T-44 and the Comet on the flank, then we would have had a very hard time engaging those three enemies. So the M103 and the IS-3, they have pushed aggressively, taking out our Tiger P. I can see that they are very close to me on the mini-map, so I don't want to be too aggressive here and just trying to look for a shot on the IS, but he's on the other side of the plateau. So I poke out here, try to see what the 103 doing, and luckily he drives out straight in front of me. I can simply just burst damage him. I think I did 480 damage to him. The T95 also put a shell into him. And the IS-3 on my left, he's not really concerned about me. He should be, because I'm an very easy target for him. He could pretty much penetrate me with HE. So I'm just gonna roll back here and make sure that I finish off this IS-3 in style. Anyway, the enemy, they have an Object 704 and a Comet left. So far I've had a pretty decent game. Not too bad. The enemies have not played to the strength of their team, I feel. The 44 shouldn't have been so aggressive, and the M103 should have been a bit more awake when he was engaging us instead of just driving out straight in front of us. So I'm on okay hit points, so I decide, okay, let's take on the duel with the 704, but he just rushes past me, so he's gonna have it's gonna be easy for me to just simply put shot after shot into him. I try to ram him to kill his tracks, but unfortunately I fail to do so. So I just get behind him and look at the burst damage. It's amazing. I think it's like to unload a full clip, which is 450 hit points, you're gonna need like 2 seconds, and man, you can really dish out the damage. So this was a pretty good game in a tier 9 matchup. I did 2,500 damage and picked up some decent experience. So without further ado, let's get into the next gameplay. So for the final game of this tank review, I'm gonna be playing on Himmelsdorf. This map is also one of the new additions in the recent update. It's a magnificent map, if you ask me. It's great for being a top tier heavy, where you can hold down across in the city, and also playing it as a medium means you get some nice opportunities to flank. So I like standing actually right in this position, right in the open, and just waiting for my enemies, for the enemies to come, using my binocular telescope to try to get initial vision on any mediums that are rushing down through the right or through this side of the map. So we spot T43, who's pushed very aggressively. We haven't spotted anyone else, so it could indicate that he's a lone wolf, and also the fact that he's igniting his engine boost and going for a run, and I simply just missed 2 shells that I should never have missed. So he gets tracked and still going full speed. I'm reloading, so I have no shots on him. Anyway, I decided to push into the city, and in this tank you can really punish your enemies when they try to run away from you, because they need to be shooting at you, because your armor is so awful that they won't have any problems penetrating you. So I see a Tiger 1 driving past me. You can see the accuracy on the gun is not great. I managed to put 1 out of 3 shots into him, decided to pull back, and I have no idea what this Tiger is doing, but it works for me. See the accuracy, not great, but I'm still able to land 2 out of 3 shots, and that was an okay result. This Tiger, I think he's maybe having some lag. He's definitely not having the best game, but I'm not gonna complain, because it's pretty much free damage for me to pick up. He even decides to reverse a bit up to make it easier for me to shoot him, but does decide to pull back, and now he's actually in a hold down position, and that's very difficult for me to engage him from, because his turret, even though it's not super strong, it's more than sufficient to make me bounce all my shots. So a Churchill 1 appears, and look at the burst damage here, 484 in 2 seconds. He's landed 1 shot on me so far, and he's gonna land 1 more before I'm reloaded, and I'm simply just gonna burst him to death again. So 2 shots from a tier 5 heavy tank, and I gave him 6 in return, so that was a great result for me. So we have a VK now. He's actually playing pretty quickly, or pretty smart. He's trying to wiggle his tank a bit, moving a bit back and forwards to try to throw my aim off guard, but with my burst damage and them not pushing towards me, I can simply just decide how we want to fight and how quickly it's gonna go. So I have no problems in pounding him for some damage. So even though this map is not made for medium tanks, if you're allowed to flank like we were, then you can really have a good game. And now you can see the Tankenstein, the Halloween special tank. He's the last one on his team, and it's simply a matter of cleaning him up now. So this was a pretty good game, and just to point out some of the highlights of this tank, the gun is amazing, the gun depression is amazing, the armor is simply terrible. So try to keep that in mind, and I'm pretty sure that you're gonna have success in this tank, because so far I've been having some decent success. I think I'm at a 70% win rate, and doing like 2,100 damage in average. So thanks for watching, guys, and have fun.
Thank you.